Oh yeah, my comments section for this video is definitely going to be civil and level-minded after I give you my review of Avatar: The Way of Water. No, it's not, is it? No. What's going on, everyone? James here with another real review, and today we're getting into all of my spoiler-free thoughts on Avatar: The Way of Water. A huge thank you to 20th Century Studios for giving me the chance to watch this early in theaters. Guys, I got the chance to watch this in Dolby Cinema 3D. This is honestly the best way to watch it if you're not watching it at a traditional IMAX theater in 3D, but man, was the sound booming, was the theater set up perfectly for this film. Now, it does hit theaters December 16th, so this weekend, if you don't already have your tickets, you might find yourself struggling to get some seats because this is going to be arguably the biggest movie released this year. I mean, it is the follow-up to the highest grossing film of all time with Avatar back in 2009, so yeah, expectations are pretty high for a lot of fans. Now, if you don't know much about the movie, it's directed and written by James Cameron. It stars Sam Worthington, Zoe Saldaña, Sigourney Weaver, Stephen Lang, and Edie Falco. Now again, without spoiling anything, the story is pretty much straightforward. Jake Sully lives with his newfound family formed on the planet of Pandora. Once a very familiar threat returns to finish what was started, Jake must now work with Neytiri and the army of the Na'vi to protect their planet. So before we get into my thoughts, my positives, and my negatives, if it is your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James, where I love talking about movies, TV, and all the news in between. So if you do too, go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, tap on the bell, and hit the thumbs up button if you're a fan of Avatar and if you're excited for The Way of Water. And let me know in the comments below when you see the movie, which one did you like more? The first film back in 2009 or The Way of Water? I'm really curious to see on which side of the fence fans are falling. I do have a side, but I wouldn't call myself a fan because if you missed my social reaction, I explained to you guys there that I did not like the first film. I didn't think it was a very good movie. Now, technically, yes, it's really impressive, but I didn't find that film back in 2009 to be a movie that really lingers on my mind. But did The Way of Water change that? Well, I'll tell you by the end. Now, guys, let's get into my positives because, of course, I'm starting off on an optimistic note here. The VFX, we're going to start there because the visual effects here, I mean, guys, based on that alone, this is a 10 out of 10 movie. They are absolutely incredible. They're far better than the first film, and I especially love what they did with the water effects. Everything just felt so immersive. There's this new island that Jake Sully and his family go and find refuge. It's this water tribe, and of course, if you're coming from the forest to the water, it's going to be tough. You're going to have to learn how to adapt and honestly fall in love with the way of water. No pun intended. But this new island, these new people, this new clan, the new animals that are introduced, man, it looks incredible. It really is breathtaking at times. And I definitely have no problem saying that the VFX work here is the best I've ever seen in a movie. It's outstanding. I mean, especially in 3D, like I mentioned, I got a chance to watch this in 3D, so the first 30 minutes for me just gave me this rush, right? There was a bit of excitement that I felt where I remembered that rush of energy that I experienced back in 2009 when I saw it in theaters. It was exciting. And some of my favorite moments here had to do during the sunset scenes and also underwater. I mean, when you're under the water, and it is gorgeous. It is so beautiful to look at. And honestly, if I'm judging the movie based off that alone, this is just, it's a ride. I mean, it really does feel like a ride from start to finish. And then you have this sound design, which I loved. I thought that all the noises for the animals, the whales, all of our Na'vi, all the gunfire even, it really sounded authentic. Maybe it sounded even better in Dolby because, of course, Dolby Atmos bounces the sound off the ceiling and then to you, and then it makes it sound like it's coming all around. It's beautiful, but boy, oh boy, did the sound design work, and so did the VFX. But outside of this movie looking beautiful and sounding great, there's also a great deal of motion capture performances here that deserve to really get some recognition, and my favorite is Zoe Saldaña's performance. It's emotionally charged and the best in the movie. She reprises her role as Jake Sully's wife, Neytiri, who can wield that crossbow. I mean, girl, she was going in. She is a great warrior, but one that is so empathetic and connected to her family. She's the glue for this movie, and if it wasn't for her, I probably would not enjoy this movie as much as I even did. I just love Zoe Saldaña's acting in general, but here, just it really almost takes the movie to another level at times. There's especially a moment in the second half of the movie that recaptured my attention and moved me. I felt the pain in her voice, the anguish. I mean, she's a great actor anyway, but here she's definitely and by far the scene stealer. But it ain't just all about Zoe Saldaña here, because even though she gives the greatest performance, there are some other notable actors here that I've never really heard of before, but this is the first time I'm being exposed to them. And I'm looking right at you, Bertan Dalton, who plays Loak, and yes, one of the children of Jake Sully and Natiri, but I loved this character arc. This subplot really worked for me, and I almost wish that we got it a little bit earlier in the film and they massaged it even more so, because this is a kid who is an outcast. In his family, he's different. To others, he's different. He gets bullied, and I resonate with this character probably the most in the entire film. When I was a kid, I was definitely different, but you know, not in a bad way. It's just I was not like the other kids sometimes. But it's the way that Loak was able to connect with people outside of just, you know, those on the surface. He had this amazing scene with the Tolkien whale that was so beautiful, gorgeous, and it aided his character development. He's the only reason why I didn't completely doze off in the middle of the movie, but we'll get there and I'll explain why. So moving on, guys, this third act, okay, so yes, we know James Cameron with his sequels. The guy is undoubtedly great. You know, Aliens, T2, the action spectacle for his sequels. Well, the ceiling is raised, right? It continues to be raised. And here, the third act, In the Way of Water, it reminded me of that James Cameron brilliance. He knows how to direct action. I mean, throughout this movie, the action was pretty good, but the third act was definitely the most impressive action set piece. I couldn't peel my eyes off of the screen for the final 30 minutes, and I kept asking myself, how in the world are they pulling this off? There's a lot of underwater shots, there's a lot of scenes where you're filmed in tight spaces, so I don't necessarily know how they were able to do all of this. And then my mind kept thinking, okay, what's real, what's not? Where are they filming, technically speaking, and where are they just, you know, filming for the VFX work? It was so cool to see everything come together, and while I didn't care for the second act at all, the third act definitely helped me not completely hate this movie. And maybe that's a good transition now and segue to my negatives section, because while I didn't hate this movie, you guys, Avatar: The Way of Water is not a great film. With all of the positives I just laid out, I genuinely couldn't bring myself to love The Way of Water. I mean, yes, the movie is undoubtedly better than the first film, which I didn't enjoy either back in 2009, but again, the sequel is just not that much greater. It has a lot of pacing issues and surprisingly some technical distractions. So let's begin with the story, and mind you, James Cameron directed and wrote this film again. Now, I have issues with that because, guys, it seems like James Cameron doesn't necessarily know how to construct a pretty solid script. I mean, this is largely a rehash of the first film in many areas. Now, are some story elements different? Absolutely. But the beats overall are just far too familiar. I mean, we even get the same antagonist here from the first film. Stephen Lang reprises his role as Colonel Quaritch, and it's just as generic and lackluster as the first movie. Now, I won't say how he returns, of course, but to me, it's just a cop-out. You know, it's just another stepping stone to the third film, and that doesn't vibe with me. There wasn't a substantial antagonist here because we've seen this antagonist before, and he lost. It's one of the many reasons why I feel like this story was pretty shallow. I mean, there's a long stretch in the second act where not only did I feel this 3-hour and 12-minute runtime, but I began dozing off. It's the same issue that I had with the first Avatar film. It starts off strong because it visually captures your attention. You are engrossed into the world of Pandora, but then by the second act and even leading into the third, there's just not enough substance there to grab and hold me. I do wish James Cameron gave the screenwriting responsibilities here to someone else, because he still can't hash out a substantial script. Is it the worst I've ever seen? No. Is it the worst I've ever seen in a film this year? Absolutely not. But so much generic dialogue is infused into this script, and there's a lot of forced line delivery and moments given to our characters that largely ruins the tone and the pacing of this movie. I mean, really, this film gets stuck in the mud in the second act. Now, do they leave the door open for a surprise or two for the third Avatar movie? Yes, they do. But it's not interesting enough to make me yearn for another sequel. I mean, honestly, guys, the minute the credits rolled, I thought, gosh, we're gonna get like 3 or 4 more of these movies. That's it's a lot. But yeah, let's move on here, because yes, the writing is bad, but there's also some performances here that are just really lackluster. And that does begin with our leading man. Now, Sam Worthington I don't think is a bad actor, but him as Jake Sully is still very one-dimensional. They provide him with character moments that should have given him layers as a father and leader, but that never resonated with me or connected beyond the script itself. And what I mean by that is, it's a lot of predictable story beats for his character. You just expect that he's going to turn the corner here. You expect he's going to do this and that. It's very safe, but also I just don't necessarily think this character is very layered. Honestly, there's really nothing here that ooh and awed me about his performance as Jake Sully. And another actor that kind of surprised me by how much I didn't buy her performance, it was Sigourney Weaver as Kiri, which is odd because her character from the first film is dead. I don't know what's up with this sequel, man. Bringing some actors back from the dead to play their characters. It's like, okay, fine. But she is a legendary actor. Sigourney Weaver is one of the best, y'all. I love her. But here, her voice doesn't fit the character she's playing. It's almost too matured for the character of Kiri, who is one of the young daughters of Neytiri and Jake Sully. So I really think that they might have missed the mark here, and they could have casted somebody younger that would have fit with the rest of the children here in the film, because they are young and they actually sound it. But then there's another horrible miscast. And this is an actor that I absolutely love, and I've loved since I saw her in The Sopranos, and that's Edie Falco. She plays, what's the General Ardmore? And if I mispronounce that, I'm sorry. But Edie Falco is horribly miscast here. Not only does she not convince me that she's an antagonist, but they give her lines. They give her character a sort of dynamic that doesn't fit Edie Falco. Just like John Leguizamo in Violent Night, where he plays an antagonist, a hokey antagonist that doesn't work because he is not believable in that role. It's the same as Edie Falco here in Avatar: The Way of Water. She plays a general that I just couldn't buy her. It took me out of the film every time she was on screen. And one of the last notes I want to make here in this section is the performance by Jack Champion as Spider. I mean, he stuck out like a sore thumb. This is a human who eventually found his way into the tribe, right, of the Na'vi, and gets taken in as like an honorary member. But y'all, Jake Champion is so far detached from the rest of his cast members, and I don't think there are many great performances here, but I just really could not love what he did in this role. He is less than convincing, and kind of just takes down the movie a notch whenever he is present. So yeah, the cast overall is just not strong. But speaking of distractions, guys, there's a huge technical misstep here that drew me out of the movie far too often. Now, for those who might not know, because most theaters still don't have this capability with their projectors, the way that this movie was filmed by James Cameron, he utilizes a high frame rate, 48 frames per second, which gives you this motion smoothing effect that you see on most modern day televisions, especially 4K TVs, and it is that soap opera effect, right, where everything seems so fluid that it feels like a video game. Now, in movies, I don't particularly prefer that. I'd rather the 28 frames per second, the 30 frames per second, give me the 24 even, just keep it kind of like, cinematic to a degree. But our theater was formatted properly for it. However, and I think this was probably on purpose, the movie bounces between 48 frames per second and 28 frames per second. I don't know why, but it was a huge distraction. Whenever we're in a big action sequence or intense moments of dialogue, the film goes back and forth between both frame rates and takes me completely out of the film. I honestly kept asking myself if this was intentional, found out it was, and if there was an issue with the movie itself. And that's not great. Again, many things in this movie just kept pulling me out rather than keep me in. I mean, oh gosh. All right, so let's go on, because I have 2 more notes for the negative section and then we'll get into my overall thoughts. But as much as I think the score wasn't bad in Avatar in the 2009 version, I just think here in The Way of Water, the score it's just middling. I was expecting more of an impact from the music composition from Simon Franklin, who's done great work in the past. I just don't think that any of the music here actually impacted me and made me, like, honestly excited. Seriously, I wasn't very excited. I was so enthralled by the visuals, but then I heard the score and I'm like, this is kind of lacking. And that's weird to say. And then when it comes to the soundtrack, I know The Weeknd on social media teased that he had a song exclusively for The Way of Water, and The Weeknd song played in the end credits. Oh boy, let me tell y'all. Yeah, that song was really forgettable. Alrighty, before you guys literally throw your pitchforks up, I got one more negative, okay? We're almost there, guys. But there is a big question that I was hoping the sequel would solve here, and that is, will this all just be spectacle, or is there going to be some substance? And sadly, the answer here is that there's very little substance, and it really is just more spectacle. So if you want a film that is going to blow you away visually, and that's all, you're gonna love this. But for me, I need more than just visuals in a film for me to say that I love it. And I know that there's a huge fan base out there that loved Avatar, and I know that they're going to come into this being okay with a story that is, kind of lackluster. But for me, it's just not enough. Like, I have to be honest with you guys, this story is not great. The movie overall is not great, but there's just nothing outside of the spectacle that grabs me here, and that's sad. And I also don't feel like this movie's gonna hold up outside of a 3D viewing in either IMAX or Dolby Cinema. If you watch this at home on a TV, it ain't gonna give you any of that sense of wonder or escape that even I felt in the first 30 minutes. Okay. So overall, you guys, Avatar: The Way of Water is a sequel that visually, it's a perfect film. It's a 10 out of 10 if you just look at the visual effects and you take a look at all of the shots underwater and the cinematography. Yes, it is a great film, but that's only half of the pie. You got to look at everything else. And for me, the story is not great. The actual writing is, it is lacking. And then the performances, you got a couple good ones, right? Like Zoe Saldana gives a genuinely good performance here, and I really enjoyed Britain Dalton's voice work. But I can't tell you that the rest of this cast was worth raving about. I mean, there's just a lot of safe character beats, and there's not a lot of ingenuity. There's nothing here outside of literally the technical aspects that gets me excited about Avatar: The Way of Water. Now, don't get me wrong, this movie is going to make a ton of money regardless of my opinion or of anyone else's, but that doesn't necessarily mean I have to be dishonest with you guys. Will it make over $1 billion? Yes. Will it make more than the first film? Time will tell, but I don't think so. I just think that this movie is one that if you're going to view it on a technical level, you're going to come away happy. And if you don't care about anything else, you'll be fine. But for 3 hours and 12 minutes, there is not enough here for me to say this movie's either worth your time or is one that is going to actually make you come away thinking, boy, 3 hours and 12 minutes? That was amazing. No, there's nothing here that's worthy of that runtime. And honestly, I do think that James Cameron needs to give the screenwriting responsibilities over to someone else for Avatar 4, because 3 is already done filming. I think they filmed it back to back, so it doesn't matter. That's done. But there's just not enough here, guys. I just really think I'm tapping out right now on the Avatar franchise after The Way of Water. Now, okay, I won't say I'm tapping out completely. I will give them another chance with Avatar 3, and I'm going to keep watching these movies. But I just go in there with expectations that, okay, it's going to be different. I'm going to come away, I'm optimistic. And I come away every time thinking, ugh, this is not good. So yes, Avatar: The Way of Water for me is treading between that 2.5 to 3 stars out of 5 category. It's not a film that I recommend unless you are a huge fan of the first. You're going to see it anyway. But if you're looking for something different than the first film and you didn't enjoy the first movie, you're going to be disappointed with this one too. So there you have it, you guys. That's my real review of Avatar: The Way of Water. Again, a big thank you to 20th Century Studios for giving me the chance to screen this movie for review. And hey, let me know if you guys see this in theaters this weekend. Get loud down below in the comments and you can tell me, hey, man, I love this movie. And or you can agree with me and say that you didn't like it, which I haven't seen those comments yet. But regardless, if you made it this far, go ahead and hit the big red button below and subscribe to the channel, y'all, because we got some more videos coming this week. And I'm rounding out this year with my top 10 movies of 2022. Number 1 is definitely going to be a film that probably makes y'all a little mad. I don't know. We'll see. Guys, again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening. Alright, well, I'm gonna go put on my armor, because I'd imagine you guys are flinging things at the screen right now, aren't you? Yeah, probably.